Welcome to Crypto Simulation Theory. I'm the Gaussian Snake. I'd like to talk about Bitcoin and what it's been doing recently and see if it still aligns with my theory that I've had for the past few months or if things have gone off track. Regardless, my theory doesn't really matter so much as your risk management. And nothing I'm going to tell you here is to be taken as financial advice, so don't think of it that way. Let's go ahead and get started. So this is Bitcoin on the daily. It's looking pretty good. I mean, if you look at where we're at right now, we're just above the 1.272 fib, just kind of chopping around in that area. That area served as kind of like resistance before back in January, and now Bitcoin trying to reclaim it as support. Gaussian channel is green, concave up and tight. So honestly, on the daily time frame, it does look really good. The under the hood indicators are showing a few different things. If you look at the ADX and DI, you can see that the ADX is trending down slightly. This could just be flagging though to a larger move for all we know. It's at 38. The green DI has just kind of been chopping around in the 28 region. No really huge impulsive moves yet, except this one on around May 9th. Stochastic oscillator is definitely in the hot zone coming down. It's just chopping around in the hot zone, and you can see on the daily time frame it can do this for quite a while. So this is not of immediate concern. Wave trend is finding support in the red zone, so we could see another move up before we print another bearish divergence. It's really easy to get caught up in the noise of the daily time frame, and I mean that is where all big moves do start. But I question how much momentum Bitcoin really has. And I can sort of envision a few different scenarios playing out here. We can talk about my base case, which I feel is not that likely to play out exactly the way that I thought it was, but I still think it could play out. And let's talk about that on the 2-week time frame for Bitcoin. So we have a very beautiful Gaussian channel, first of all. I do need to acknowledge that. This inflection and this move to a tight green concave up Gaussian channel is very, very good looking. And you can see that price action is, once again, I mean, this doesn't really look any different than what I've already shown you, of course. We have 4 green weeks in a row. That'd be like 4 2-week greens, green 2 weeks in a row. That's a really encouraging sign. We've also made a pretty nice accomplishment by taking out the downtrend SAR just recently. So you can see the parabolic SAR downtrend has been invalidated when we have 2 2-week periods that are now in the green SAR. And so, they're kind of flat right now, but they could easily curl up, right, if things get really bullish. In terms of moving averages, remember I use whole moving averages, not SMAs. So this is the 400-week whole moving average sitting at about 67K. We're well above that. We tested the 100-week, this is a 200-week HMA. That's around 92K. We successfully tested that. We are above even the 100-week HMA, which is around 98.5K, and the 20-week looks like it's curling up again. So clearly everything is positioned for some kind of upside move. That seems to be what's most probable. The question is, how high will we go and what happens next? The current Bitcoin price is 105K, so we're really not that far off of the previous all-time high. High likelihood that we take it out. So if you look at where we're at in terms of risk, we are currently at just barely around 60 risk. 60 risk is 106.4K. So the all-time high is just slightly higher than that. I personally have thought that Bitcoin would be most likely to hit its 1.414 fib on this next move up. That would place price at around 128 to 132K, putting it kind of near 70 risk. That would not be a bad place to see things chill out for a little while, just because if we go up too fast, and we hit 180 to 200K, we're pretty much right at the top. Bitcoin doesn't care what we want; it will do whatever it's going to do. But that's just something to mention. Is we're usually pretty safe in the 60 to 80 risk zone, but if we get into the 80 to 100 risk zone, that is traditionally where major tops have occurred. So just keep that in mind. That could happen, but my thought is based on fibs, based on logarithmic regression, which I did that in my last Bitcoin video, so go ahead and check that out if you haven't already. I'm kind of thinking a more likely stop is probably going to be the fib level that it hasn't hit yet, which is the 1.414. Shooting up to the 1.618 here, while possible, would probably put us in a situation where we're getting near a cycle top. And yeah, we're in year 4, so that could happen. And it's a situation to definitely watch out for. Do we have the momentum to do that? I mean, you look at volume. volume has been just kind of trending down. We haven't really seen any super impressive volume yet, the kind that we usually see in mania moves. But leading up to a mania move, you usually do have this compressed volume. So again, like there are signs that a mania move could be coming. Now, why am I a little skeptical that we're about to put in a $200,000 top right now? I have some reasons, and they're mostly under the hood, and they have to do with momentum. So that is my bias. I am biased towards momentum when it comes to indicators. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 2-week ADX and DI. Typically during cycle peaks, you see this, the ADX really get elevated and hit these levels around 80. Right, that we saw that in the last cycle in April of 2021. We saw it. We even saw it in June of 2017. Keep in mind though, the December peak was technically on a lower high of the ADX, but didn't matter. Trend strength up here is ferociously strong. We're currently at levels of trend strength that mirror the bear market decline in December. Okay, just in reverse. We're in a bull market. Is there another time where we've had trend strength kind of where it's at now? I mean, May of 2016, maybe. Actually, I could draw a horizontal. Let me draw a horizontal line, and we'll take a look at where trend strength has been at this level in a bull market, not a bear market. So we had trend strength like this in February, and that preceded a really huge run up, right? Things seem to be kind of like kicking down right now. But yeah, I mean, there really is no time to compare this to too much. I think 2019 comes close. And that has been something I have advocated for in my theory, which is that, most of 2025 has been a Bitcoin heavy year. And we'll take a look at Bitcoin dominance to kind of corroborate that. So this could be a continuation of that Bitcoin only bull market, even though ETH Bitcoin has technically probably bottomed, at least put in a local bottom. Bitcoin dominance has taken a bit of a hit. It is still strong. So we can't discount that this is mostly a Bitcoin bull market at the moment. But seeing that the ADX is only around 34, potentially kinking down, the rebound by the green DI is not that impressive. It really leads me to wonder how much upside potential we have at this stage. And then probably my single biggest concern, and I've gotten repetitive about this, but nothing has changed my mind so far, is the 2-week reverse Chanday momentum oscillator, which hit very significant levels in March of 2024. This was, February 2024. This is like right before our $73,500 peak. It was a significant level. And you can see every time we've hit these levels, it's preceded a major cycle peak of some kind. It could be an intermediate top, January 2021, June of 2019, that's your 2019 echo bubble, December 2017, that's your end of cycle top, March of 2013, and then again later on in 2013 in November, December. So that is a significant level that usually corresponds to a major cycle top. We're nowhere near that right now. And we have a head and shoulders pattern. So what I could see happening here is that, let me see if I could draw this out for you. We'll use a path tool. So I could potentially see this coming up. I think that's likely heading into June. I have a hard time seeing the signal line though, even if it does flip green, put in anything other than a lower high. And then my main concern is that maybe it rolls over and completes the shoulder and does so potentially in a very bearish way. That's a concern of mine. Now, will that happen? I don't know. I don't think it would go that low, by the way. That would be sort of like sort of like a 2019 style move where the rally goes on until rate cuts come. Now, it is possible too, because rate cuts keep, and I'll talk about that too. Rate cuts just keep on, seeming further and further out. It is possible that we do what we did in 2013, where maybe, let's say, rate cuts happen in like September or October or something. And maybe what we do is we plateau up here, invalidate the head and shoulders, and then drop. Let me show you. I mean, this has nothing to do with macroeconomic conditions in 2013, but that's kind of what happened, right? Like it looked like a head and shoulders was building until it wasn't. So this is a much more head and shoulders pattern, but we have to consider this possibility as well. This would invalidate my theory of a mid-cycle bear market transition from Bitcoin dominance to Ethereum dominance, or risk off to risk on. But this would just, be a blow off top for Bitcoin at the end of the year around $200,000. Okay. So I think it'd be foolish to not at least consider that possibility. I don't think it's the most likely outcome, honestly, but it could happen. And you look at the average sentiment oscillator on the 2-week, it kind of makes you think we need a good bear bubble in here, and we need it soon, right? Because we have another sort of head and shoulders formation on the average sentiment oscillator. Yeah, it's coming up, and this will probably kink up a little bit from the upside moves that we've experienced. But I just question how high this can go, how much longer this bull bubble really has to it. I mean, we're already getting pretty close to what we would call kind of a complete bull bubble. And you almost feel like a bear bubble needs to happen. So will it happen on a blow off top and we get a full bear market off that? Or are we going to have a mid-cycle pause and transition, sort of like make this whole entire thing like one giant 2019 move? That's my base case, but you certainly don't have to share it. I mean, I used to think that we were getting a rate cut in June. I thought that was going to happen. And it doesn't look like it anymore. So market participants feel that with an overwhelming certainty that we are not getting rate cuts in June. I mean, 88%. Jerome Powell came out and said the economy was strong. Go to July, and there definitely is a case to be made for a rate cut in July, but the majority is favoring a pause. But a 34% chance is still more convincing than what we're facing in June. You get out to September, and it's virtually certain that there'll be a rate cut. So you think about kind of what that implies. And if we look at the probabilities, you can see the market is starting to think that the back half of the year is where the rate cuts would take place. That, in my mind, if it does happen, would need to come on some kind of economic weakness, not strength. And so maybe we get a little bit of an extended Bitcoin only bull run. And then while these rate cuts are happening, Ethereum, Bitcoin could be really defining its bottoming process, right? And then start its own. And then I think the more risk on version of the bull market might come later in 2026. So I kind of go along with what I'm seeing here. This data is obviously going to change, but that's sort of how I form my guesses as to what's going to happen, because the Fed certainly isn't going to cut rates into a strong economy. And I have a hard time seeing altcoins run like crazy with interest rates where they are. So it's just a little hard to picture that. But as far as Bitcoin's concerned, yeah, I think it can run through June, maybe even July, but I wouldn't go much longer than that before something likely is going to break. So the stock market has yet to prove that its current bounce, which is an impressive bounce, by the way, don't get me wrong, this is on the 2-week time frame. It bounced off the green Gaussian. It's tight, concave up, so that's pretty impressive. It's just hard to imagine that we're likely to put in anything other than a double top here, or slightly higher high at best when you look at what's under the hood, right? Like under the hood, look at this average sentiment oscillator. It's been in a bull bubble for a really long time. Now, it could do something like what it did from 2019 to 2020, where it just kind of comes down and then goes right back up again. I mean, stock market bull markets are long. So don't get me wrong. The 2-week RCMO also hit historical levels where it's seen reversals before. It means down here at negative 33.74. So how much further down is it going to go? I mean, it's at historical bottom levels. So this is another big what if scenario. Is the stock market going to keep raging while interest rates are still relatively high? I mean, it could, right? And what if this just keeps going up? Well, then I think the blow off top scenario for Bitcoin and a full year-long bear market is likely. And with interest rates being high, it would make me wonder kind of how much altcoins and ETH can really run. I don't think that's likely to happen, though. I'm stubbornly sticking to my theory, which is a mid-year rollover by both the stock market. And it really, for me, comes down to this. Like, when does the Fed feel like enough damage has been done and, they could start cutting rates? And maybe it doesn't happen until September. Maybe the summer is really good for crypto. But just watch out for that danger zone that I was talking about with Bitcoin getting into that 100. I'd say anything over 170K, you're kind of getting into a danger zone right now. So let's take a look at Bitcoin dominance, right? I'm not sure if I really wanted to look at it on the 2-week, but here we are. So this is a pretty nice rejection that happened at the 786 fib, but then look how quickly it recovered. Bitcoin dominance is persistent right now, and it makes sense too with interest rates being what they are. So you're talking Bitcoin dominance still hanging out above its 618 fib, still above this former resistance zone. So, I mean, how can you expect a really massive altcoin season to materialize with 64% dominance. You know, I mean, like, you can have some good moves by altcoins, and I'm not saying that that won't happen, but it just doesn't really add up for me. Like, we need to see a bigger rollover by dominance, and are we going to see that? That's the big question. I'm just going to use the same indicators I had pulled up earlier. The 2-week RCMO is getting to some pretty high levels, but it's been staying at high levels like this whole time. It's been above zero, I mean, since 2022, folks. That's a strong, strong dominance. Look at this bull bubble. I mean, the longest bull bubble in Bitcoin's history. This is crazy. Bitcoin dominance's history. And as far as like the ADX and DI go, it's just a steady, stable trend. It is coming down, but there's really no imminent signs of severe bearishness yet for dominance on a 2-week time frame. Okay. Again, I'm more concerned with macro moves than I am with, like, you know, the day-to-day stuff, because day-to-day noise is so stochastic. It's hard to really keep track of it. We could throw a Bollinger Band on here too. And look at, I mean, dominance has just been in the upper quadrant. It's still in the upper quadrant. Might it come down and test this line as support? I think it's more likely to hold this support than resistance, honestly, and come back up and maybe double top into the 786. Something like that could happen, right? Like, I think Bitcoin dominance is time to shine is probably, you know, coming to an end, and it's been a frustrating long road. But I think, you know, you'll see dominance sort of roll over when we have more liquidity flowing, or at least a perception that it's going to be flowing. And that's, to me, you got to see some rate cuts taking place for that to happen. And I think that's where you can really see things like ETH Bitcoin establish its lows. And we'll talk about that in a separate video. But yeah, I mean, so like my short-term forecast for Bitcoin is bullish. I think a trip to 128 to 132K makes sense. Could happen. I think part of my base case where I said that Bitcoin was unlikely to take out 109K on this move up, I think that will be invalidated. I am still thinking that we get a mid-year rollover, bear market, something like that, after probably a pretty good run by crypto. That may feel somewhat disappointing to people who were expecting more. I think people think that, you know, Ethereum is about to go bananas, and I don't think it's going to, like, in the way that people think yet. I think we need to see rate cuts. We need to see some relief, and the market turn much more risk on than before we see that happen. And that's something I want to talk about in my next video. So I'm sorry, guys, if you've been following me on this channel. I know I've been absent lately, having some chronic health issues that have really affected me a lot. I've been taking off work, and it's been a tough time for me. So thank you for showing me grace. And it's a long road to recovery. It's not the sort of thing you can look at me and see, because I probably look fine to you, but I'm not. So yeah, anyways, talking about crypto is really fun, and it makes me feel better just doing this video. So if you're new to this channel and you haven't subscribed yet, go ahead and click on the subscribe button. Notify yourself in case new videos come out. You can be reminded of that. Be sure to follow me on Telegram. I have a Telegram group. A lot of people posting in there. Links in the video description. I also have a Twitter and an Instagram, so check that out as well. None of this was financial advice, but this was the crypto simulation. We'll see you again next time.